today with context engineering by my fellow Java champion Baruch.
Hey.
And the father of DevOps, Patrick de Bois.
Thank you, Fabian. Hello and welcome. Thank you very much for coming. Patrick, I want to show you something.
Okay.
Look, I had Claude MD, which I fed everything there is to know about my project. It has code samples, it has all the documentation, it has best practices, it has everything there is. And now, all I want to do is add error handling to one of my endpoints. I gave it a lot of context, it should probably manage.
Yeah.
Let's see what's happening.
I think it's easy right now, right?
The font is okay for you on the back? Okay. Should be easy, right? It's a small project, and I gave it a lot of context, so let's see what's happening.
By the way, it's a little bit like Ignite karaoke for me. I haven't seen all the runs, so I'm going along.
Me
right?
too.
So.
Me too. Makes two of us, and a lot of us. Okay, so let's see. It adds try and catch, which is good. Fabian, sorry, it's not Java. Oh, but the test failed. Look at that, Patrick. Look what's going on.
How is that possible?
Yeah, there is an assertion error here. Expected for a 4 for a missing order and got 500.
So it's not working.
Patrick, what's going on?
Maybe you stuffed too much in there? What do you think?
Who thinks that it just ran off context window and it needs more context window?
Only one. Interesting.
Okay, it's QCon. It's not going to work.
Okay. All right. Well, so maybe level setting. Who has used Claude Code for coding? All right. Who has ever run out of context window? There you go. So congratulations.
Well, we tried. Right. So a lot of people say, let's try another model, see if it works, a bigger model, kind of that is obviously, a lot of people are looking for the ideal model. At a certain time, they will all have the same problem. They have a maximum context window. The more we stuff with it, like Baruch showed a big Claude MD we put in, but there's even other parts that go into that. Remember, when Claude, as a coding agent, it has its system prompt, which already takes a bunch of that as well. There's your chat conversation, that as well. Like everything you keep typing and everything it returns also goes into the context window. So all that together will eventually blow up your context window. Let me get it straight. What you're saying is that the system is stateless, and every time, whatever you send it, goes back and forth forever?
Well, luckily, otherwise it would keep all our chats on their servers and all the stuff, which kind of like is...
I don't know what it's better. That would be their problem.
Yeah. Well, depends on who you talk to.
So if I pasted a log file into my context, like into my chat window, it will travel back and forth.
Yeah, as part of your session, and it just keeps adding to that whole thing. It's one of the demystifying things. People think that it's only your chat, but it actually always sends the whole shebang over the line to the LLM. So that's why this context window, even if you're typing tiny messages, just fills up.
So they lied to us. Who would have thought?
Yeah.
Right. So what it has to do with engineering?
So it's more like, why do we keep stuffing everything in there? There must be kind of a better way. What do you think?
Yes. And there is a lot of talk about prompt engineering. Is prompt engineering, context engineering the same thing?
So prompt is how to craft the perfect query or prompt that does exactly what you want. But it's only part of a whole conversation, which is your context. So that's how to relate. Now, initially, everybody was obsessed with the prompt, right? Getting the perfect incantation to do the model on the one shot you can send it to do it. And then later,
as we kind of got the tricks with exclamation marks and all kind of funny things, and it's like treat it as your life depends on it, it became a part of giving it the right context. And we started putting more and more context
Wait a
in
second,
that conversation.
important stuff.
Important stuff?
Yeah, important stuff.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, more context?
Okay.
All
here
good?
we go.
All right,
Okay,
perfect.
continue.
Okay.
Right. Okay. So my name is Baruch Sadogurski, and I'm a context sommelier because I love context engineering and wine at Tesla AI. And this is the one, the only, the legendary Patrick Dubois, father of DevOps, the man who actually invented the term DevOps. And now
That's old news. Let's talk about AI.
let's talk about that. Sounds good. All right. Okay. So the most important slide of all this is this. If you go to speaking.jbaruch, you will find there the slides with the speaker notes. The video that we are recording right now I was told on 4 different devices, so one of them will work. The agent code and the demo recordings that no one saw, including Patrick, and the cheat sheet about what we're going to talk about. All this is conveniently, and all the links, it's conveniently on the bottom of every slide, so you don't need to remember. And there is a QR code that is going to disappear in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, gone.
All right. So by the way, we're explaining this whole problem set by using coding agents, because a lot of you are using coding agents. But obviously, when you're writing your own agent within your product, they have the same problems, right? A lot of people put too much kind of documentation, too much stuff in there. The agent gets lost. If it becomes too long, the context, then it like loses parts at the end, and it doesn't become efficient. And in a coding agent, you've done this before, you might have just created like a new session, just to keep track of that. Okay. How do we go next?
Yeah, so this was the stuffed prompt, what we saw an example, right? How do we fix it?
All right. So over the time of building the coding agents, we started having Claude MD, then we put things in some files. And then eventually now, let's say roughly 5 or 6 months ago, the idea of skills came about. And the idea there is, it is also context, but part of the skill describes when to load the context. So we're not loading everything up front, but it's like trigger words that inject that context into the prompt that's being sent over. And I think that would be the solution.
All right, so let's see what we can do about it. So this is that was our entire Claude MD when we stuffed everything into the prompt every time we ask anything. That's what you saw previously.
I think you have a typo, right? No, sorry.
And this is our skill. What are we looking here?
Yeah, so the first part of the skill has a name, but that's just for us humans to kind of recognize it. But the description is actually describing when it's supposed to trigger. So on coding conventions, error handling, and so on. So the agent takes that description of your skill to actually figure out, should I load this file? It's a big difference because your Claude MD, when you start your coding agent, gets immediately loaded. So everything you put in there will be every time in your context. Skill will be lazy loaded. So that's the difference between.
The description is critical because this is where activation is decided. The agent looks at all the descriptions of all the skills it has on its disposal, and it goes like, okay, for what I was asked, this skill will do the job. So developers lazy, if we have a field description, we will probably copy paste the title and move on. Don't do that with skills. Right? Okay, so...
By the way, one question. Who has used skills? Wow, good job.
Who wrote a proper description? How do you know you wrote a proper description? We'll talk about that. Okay, should we apply the skill instead of CloudMD?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right, let's do it. So what we're going to do now, we're going to delete the terrible CloudMD, and actually put the skill right there. So you see, this is our skill. I just printed out the titles, so you will see it, like the parts. And then we are going to ask for the exactly same prompt, right? It's exactly the same text. Error handling. We didn't have it. Let's add it, and let's see what's going on now. Who thinks it's going to work?
This is where we do a dance. I learned that from the opening keynote. Don't be afraid.
I mean, look at those people of little faith. I had 3 hands when I asked if it's going to work or not. I mean, I'm extremely disappointed.
It's 10:46 in London. What do you expect?
In your lack of faith, because of course it will work. I didn't do live demo. I'm not stupid. Well, I wanted to, and then I looked at the Claude status yesterday, and I'm like, no, not gonna do it. All right. Well, it worked. The skills work amazingly well. Yep.
Yeah. So the difference is you cut up the pieces that you know. Maybe your front-end kind of advice to the agent doesn't need to be loaded when you're doing back-end stuff. Maybe your directory layout doesn't care when you're doing UI stuff. So kind of those trigger words allow you to cut up a lot of the context. And this was, of course, one example, but this is the way to go, says the Star Wars fan. But
before, we stuffed everything into one prompt, and we had conflicting conventions. We got the wrong answer. The 500, it wasn't purely hallucinated, right? If I go back to my terrible CloudMD for a second and search for error handling, I can type. There are 4 hits. Right, so there are conflicting instructions there because we keep adding there, no one checks that it's up to date, we're just keeping throw stuff on it. And then it's like, but do you remember Back to the Future? There was, who remembers Mr. Fusion, the engine? Okay, tell me, like, just out loud, how it worked. You put in what? Garbage. You put in garbage and you get out energy. This is the opposite. You put in a lot of energy and you get out. Yeah. So, so this is like 700 lines of code, conflicts and conventions.
I wanted to add one caveat. As you're chatting away and it's loading progressively, it is keeping that skill that you loaded previously also still in memory, right? So sometimes, again, that's why it's useful to just switch to a new session because your skills are then fresh and not loaded, right? I haven't seen a system that unloads skills, but someday that will likely come to keep track of what it does. Another way kind of Claude deals with it is it delegates things to sub-agents. They get like a clear zero context again, and then they go off, they hand off the result and come back, right? And while we're saying conflicting conventions, because we're splitting things up in different files isn't happening, now we have another problem, conflicting skills. Remember that description? If it overlaps, that's another problem. But it's probably easier to deal with than conflicting kind of descriptions in everything. All right.
So skill is just a markdown file. And the first instinct we all have when we have something like a text file or a source file is how do we manage it? How do we manage source file, text file? GitHub. We just shove it on GitHub.
Version control,
yeah, and then we go on LinkedIn, hey, context engineering. In this day of AI, it's very important to, look, I wrote a skill, here is my link to a GitHub file.
Yeah, it's a great way to show off.
No, but I mean, is it the way to actually do stuff?
Well, if you put something on LinkedIn, I know, I can't argue with that. But on GitHub,
it's there, but how does somebody else use it, right? That's one of the problems you have. And then it also is a skill, no pun intended, to write a skill that somebody else could use, right, within the organization. You have to think more of edge cases, maybe they're hitting some other things that do, but it's a little bit like open source. You share it, it can be rough, but if you really want it to be used, you have to put some love around it. People expect things, they want you to have it tested, version control, so they know when it's failing. We'll get into that later, but it's a whole bunch.
Yeah, so Patrick, I spent more than a decade in JFrog convincing people that shoving jar files and other artifacts into GitHub is not proper artifact management. It was just a warm-up for this. Actually, skills shoved into GitHub is not proper artifact management. Because think about stuff that you really need once your LinkedIn post, took off and everybody wants your skill. Versioning. I installed your amazing skill from your LinkedIn post, and then a month later, how do I know that's the latest version? How about distribution? Is my skill public or private, or for my team, or for my organization? Right? How do we manage that part? Right? Yeah. So there are a lot of aspects that skill, although being just a text file, actually have more in common with artifact management, Docker images, NPM packages than with source files. So treat it as an artifact.
Even within a skill, now you can have pieces of code, you can have pieces of documentation for that skill. So think of it more like a zip file or indeed like a jar file of a bunch of things, not just the markdown file. And that's why version control and putting it somewhere reusable kind of makes sense from there.
Right, so let's summarize the first part.
It's not a junk drawer?
It's not, it's not.
Okay, so kind of be selective on what you put in there, break it up, and then kind of make them reusable. So when you head to the next project, you don't have to copy your Claude MD from the one project to the other. Think of this as a reusable component that you share more and more across, whether that's across your own tooling, whether that's across your team, whether that's across different agents. They're all pieces of context that you can reuse from that as well. Only one way? How many to go?
We can try another one. You want to see another one?
All right.
Let's do another one. Okay, so what else can we use? So here's an example of a search. How many of you heard about RAG? Retrieval, what it stands for? Retrieval Augmented Generation.
In a church, like people mumbling, right?
Yeah, no, people know their stuff. Yeah, Retrieval Augmented Generation means that our generation now is not based on what model knows. We're actually augmented with more stuff that we retrieved, means found somewhere. The way we plug in RAG into Claude Code is by using MCP that Patrick is going to talk about. And here we have a RAG server that is connected. And what we're going to ask now is to add notifications to our amazing system that we're working on. Add a notification. Pidge is a very sophisticated library that I vibe coded yesterday for notifications. Then we can run tests and see if it works. Same idea, right? So it will find API docs in our vector database. It found something. It found actually 2 hits. One with relevance 0.46, not great. The other 0.76. The closer to 1, the better. This is a good hit. This means that it found a very relevant piece of documentation that it will now use to do that. How many of you think it will work? Okay, more hands than the previous demo.
Right?
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Let's see what actually happens. Looks clean, straight from the docs. Tests fail. I mean, seriously, you thought that it will work? Didn't you get the pattern by now? Okay, we'll check the next one. Okay, and anyway, but something went wrong. Score 0.7 relevance was very, very high, but it was actually wrong. There are two versions, version 2 and version 3, and it chose the wrong one. Patrick, how that did happen? How did this happen?
Yeah, so one of the first things I learned about RAG and thinking it was the holy grail to find everything back on my hard drive, in my email and stuff like that, I started indexing that. And I must say that I was very disappointed when I was asking it a question and it returned me an email with the same question. That's because it doesn't look whether it's relevant, it just looks whether it's similar, right? So the same thing as they show with documentation, there could be lots of documentation, but whether that applies to the piece that you actually need is not up to the RAG to decide. So this is another problem. And then RAG also kind of suffers from the stuffed prompt a little bit in a way that if it's a big document, in order to index it, we need to chunk it up in pieces, and it will only find pieces. And then maybe the cutoff of the piece just was in the wrong place. And so it missed actually the relevance because it imputed kind of parts of it as separate parts. So RAG is great if you know the limitations and where you put it in. And I would also say a lot of the early coding agents had RAG indexing, not just for text, but for code. And what you've seen is they moved on to using grep and search and so on. And it was more, it wasn't that they believed it was going to be better, but it was empirical that they said, we get better results because the grep actually takes context and searches where it fits in. So RAG's great if you know what the limitations are, what you're looking for, but it is not the ultimate grail.
So what else do we have? RAG, we just mentioned.
Yeah. Another piece is obviously just searching the web, right? Like, why do you need to index? Like, indexing is slow, especially with dynamic information. You don't know it ahead of time. There's a cost effect of doing that. So why not just search and go out? But again, do you know whether that is accurate? Do you know that's relevant? So you kind of have to ask the agent. And it's also like a bunch lower. One of the early products we had, the company I was working for, like, do we do a web search or do we do a semantic search? And then when both give results, which is the best one? So that's another challenge, like which is the more relevant, because this one gives you relevant scores, but this one might give you a keyword. And then people are experimenting, if I give it a search, a lot of people are still giving it a keyword search instead of actually a question. So when you give it a question, when you give it keywords, then your embedding is not matching, but your web search is, but it might get the different things there as well. So challenges everywhere.
So another kind of trade-off with web search is obviously will work fine for whatever current trendy thing is that has a lot of relevant results on web search, but if you do something that is niche, something that is not very hype, you'll probably get wrong answers from Stack Overflow of 2009 in your answers, which is also obviously problematic. MCP, is it like, what can we do with MCP?
Yeah, so I would say that MCP is something you have to look at more as a connector. So it's not like a specific search way of searching. You could do semantic search over MCP. You can do grep over MCP. You can do, so it's not that it's doing anything specific, but what it does add is, like, when it gives a description of what the MCP function can do, there is another prompt that goes into your system prompt, or not your system prompt, but in your old prompt that it's being sent over. So a lot of people said, like, I'm going to give it all the tools, right? And then you started seeing that like explosion of MCP tools descriptions, which eventually led to the first thing, like having a whole context full way faster than you had before, right? So people are now mixing MCPs with skills and kind of make it, and there's also now new RFCs about making MCP more lazy loading, discoverable, kind of in there as well. Right.
What else do we have?
Yeah.
This one is interesting.
Yeah. So the version documents, you can do web search, keywords, you can do semantic search, but sometimes it's very important to give it also maybe more, I was going to say static information, but let's say we are on version this, so filter out all the other stuff. So kind of think about like when you're searching, what do you filter with the input or the context that you already know, because that will improve the searches to limit it back. So if you search all documentation, we might have 7 different versions of the same API being described, or various states on your wiki. But if we say we're on this version, it might be more selective. And kind of that is the filtering mechanism that works well.
And there are a bunch of companies and tools today that do that.
Yeah.
Right, so that's another option. The last one, rules, what this is about.
Yeah, so the rules is something that it also goes into the system prompt. Most of the tools loaded there, or it's lazy loaded based when the coding agent is doing certain files, right? Then it loads it up. So rules can be managed by your IDE as well as a way of loading things in the context while your coding isn't doing it, but it kind of gets appended based on the file suffixes and stuff like that. But a rule could be anything. It basically is also a prompt that you add, but it's another snippet that you're not putting directly in your Claude MD, but could be more lazy loaded locally as well.
So MCP, all of them are consumed through MCP. We saw RAG consumed through MCP, web search, you can install MCP that will do better search, and then version doc artifacts, all those tools are consumed through MCP. So MCP is not really a channel, it's kind of a plumbing. So we have 4 context channels, search in database, search in web, rules which are always do that, and then pieces of documentation which are correct for exact that tool. So which one do we need to use?
Use the best one for the tool.
Let's use the best one for the tool. Okay, so what we're gonna do here is we're gonna use the documentation for our PG notification, right? So here is the reference of the notification library written in the way that our agent will have the best time with. So you can see that it's version 3, not some unknown version, and it goes into the full documentation, including examples, including stuff that it should go, integration pattern, error handling, and what's not. We can also have here rules for this particular library, right? So here are the rules. Use async API. Do not use obsolete versions. Construct messages with this class. Very strict rules that should always apply when we use this library. So we're actually going to use 2. We're going to use version docs and we're going to use rules.
Yeah.
Okay.
But one of the things that vendors of libraries or kind of providers of libraries are doing, they're starting to provide you not just the code of the library, but they're providing you kind of the rules or kind of the best practices that go in. So imagine if they provide it as an artifact that you can just download and you all of a sudden get the best practices. You don't have to write everything in your Claude MD. And that's what kind of is like, brings it up almost like a life cycle. A new version of the library, new version of all the descriptions, and you're golden, right? The LLMs can't keep up because they are only trained on a kind of limited set, or they have a cutoff date until when they were trained on.
Okay, so let's see what we can do. Right, so this is what it's called tile. Think of tile like a plugin. This is the plugin of context artifacts, piece of context that has all the needed information for our context about my PG library. And you can see there are docs, that's exactly what we saw previously, there are rules, and we can also write skills And skills, as we spoke about, is this is how it should be done. So that would be best practices on how to use our library. And it's all packaged together as an artifact, probably versions and distributed and managed and what's not. And once we have this, we can actually go ahead and ask Claude to use this instead of doing RAG to get the right documentation. So here we go. Let's see. Exactly the same prompt, obviously. Send confirmation notification. Again, I didn't manage version previously. I don't mention version now. It should figure it out. And let's see what's going on. Who thinks it will work? Ah, you do learn. Nice. Yeah, pattern recognition right there. Okay. Here we go. Successfully loaded skill twice. We have 2 skills now. The one is for our library. This is how we, for our project. This is how we write project. That's what we solved previously. And the second skill now is this is how do you use our notification library, right? And now it knows exactly what to do. It knows how to look for the right documentation, and it's obviously going to use the right version. It's going to use version 3 because remember, in skills, version 3, in docs, version 3, and in rules, always use version 3. It's like belt, suspenders, and what else? I ran out of analogies of holding my pants. 3 levels of suspenders, right? And obviously, everything passed. Isn't it nice? Yeah. Okay, so this is what changed. Before, we had search docs through MCP. It was similar topic. Version 2 was a little bit better indexed, and we got the wrong answer. And after, version 3 doc style from the registry that it found in the registry, downloaded exact docs and correct answer. Beautiful.
Yeah. By the way, for those using Claude, Anthropic has a skill that says, like, can you do whatever I did right now, can you turn that into a skill?
Oh yeah.
So you can save that quite easily, and then it becomes reusable. Same with docs. I keep repeating this over and over again. Save this to my rules, save this to my docs, and that's like your lib that we need to know kind of starts being reusable as well. Version control.
Yeah, so this is our context artifact now.
Yeah.
It has skills, it has rules, it has docs, it has a piece of content which is packed together, versions, tested, and distributed.
Yeah.
How do you test context artifact? We're going to talk about that in a second. Meanwhile, let me just do here something. Let me just do something
I think
here.
there's a talk on evals after this.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that in a second. Okay. So, what did we learn?
Similar things, but not always useful things. Kind of context artifacts allow you to make it reusable, and you kind of know whether you're searching or accessing. If it's just like a plain search, or I want exactly this, is another way of thinking about like finding the right tool for the right context that you need to use.
Okay.
All right, two
down.
All right.
Patrick recommended clearing context. Should
we
we clear
said
context? Let's clear context.
Yeah,
okay.
This helps with bloat in the context window, so definitely can recommend it.
Okay, let's discuss. You remember our discussion, should we use version 2 or version 3? Claude learned something. Let's see if we can decide on which version is better. Based on our previous experience, everything we know, go with version 3. Because, that's the right thing to do, rules and what's not, it explains why we do that. And then I'm going like, okay, version 3, sounds good. But now, what we're going to do is we maybe have a little bit of stuffed context there. Let's clear and ask what we just decided. Will it work? Ah, nice. Okay. I don't have any context from previous conversations.
This is the exact reason, I don't know if you've ever had this, but you're in a coding session, it's giving you the right results. You do not want to close this. It's so good, this one. And I know if I close it, I was like, it's really terrible, right? It's not FOMO. Maybe somebody has a term for this, but it's like definitely closing it is not. But yeah, so
it doesn't remember the things, and that's kind of the challenging part.
Yeah, but also like modern agents do have memory, and you saw it all. It does something with the memory all the time. It's like, ooh, updating the memory, shh, and they're like, ooh, looking in the memory. Do you have any idea what's in this memory? It's like, you know, when you're in therapy, well, you may not know, but yeah, and then the therapist starts to write something, and you're like, what are you writing? Is it good? And they will never tell you. It's that.
Yeah.
It's like updating the memory, and you're like, what did you write down? And it will never tell you.
Yeah.
So it has a memory.
Yeah.
You just don't control it.
You've seen it a little bit, like writing in Memory MD, maybe, like over the last couple of months. It writes some files about your project. It saves some context that you said it. You can obviously do it yourself by saying, you know, everything that I said, save that to a Markdown file, but now the tools are doing this automatically, and they're also even looking at past sessions or something, kind of trying to figure out like if they need to remember something as well.
So it has memory.
Yeah.
The problem is you have no idea what it is. And you know what's worse than that secret notebook that they write stuff? The compacting. Like, this is like the worst idea ever. Because what it does, what compacting does?
It saves you space in that big context window, and it usually does it by taking pieces and say, let me summarize some pieces, and let me kind of remove pieces that are irrelevant anymore.
Who decides that they are irrelevant?
Good question. By the way, Claude, when you give it /compact, you can actually specify the reason or the focus that it needs to keep while cleaning up kind of your context. So if you just do /context, it's just going to do clean whatever, but we can nudge it a little bit, but still it feels like, okay, I'm not going to know what's coming.
Exactly. So this is a black box. Both memory and compaction are black boxes that you have zero control. So what do you do instead? Who got the reference? Amazing Christopher Nolan film called Memento. It was about the guy that couldn't retain memories. So what he did, he wrote everything down, and including on his own skin. So when he wakes up in the morning, he can reread it and then remember what it is about. This is exactly what we are gonna do, right? So our next, we did this. Yep. Our next demo is going to do exactly that. Should we use version 2 or version 3? It will give us exactly the same answer, obviously. We should use version 3. And look what changed. Want me to document this decision? Where this comes from? You know the answer by now. Where does it come from? We just spoke about it. How do you instruct agent to do what it's needed? Yeah, you forgot, I know. Skills, right? This is something that we can easily program with skills. And if we, well, wait a second. So first of all, who thinks it will work?
Wow, that took a plummet.
Okay, they give me much more credit than I deserve. I'm not that sophisticated. Really, it's gonna work. There we go. Let me check what we have on the record. It searches our memory.
Like memory / decisions.
Yeah,
reading,
so you saw
yep.
that line, right? Memory / decisions. It's already collapsed. And there is like a schema of how it saves stuff. And the schema comes from the rules of our project. Remember, so we have here our skills, that this is how we do things in our project. And all we did here is added a new set of instructions. Memory bank. Architectural decisions are stored in memory decisions with a clear format of how to do things. And then in the rules of our project, we will say every time there was a decision made, go and save it in the memory bank using the rules in the skill. When you are in a new context and you have no idea what to do, use the memory bank to load all the decisions using the skill.
Yeah, I just want you to take like a moment and look at this in awe. Imagine the lines of code that you would have had to program to have the same thing. You just describe it in a prompt in a skill, and it kind of works, right? So that's the time we're living in. Like, that is amazing. And I find that amazing.
Me too. I'm blown away. This only thing was invented for me, because I don't need to write code. I just can tell, do this, and then it works.
Yeah.
Amazing, amazing. Okay, so again, before, clear a blank slate, what decision, and after, decision read from memory decisions, and it says we decide on what needs to be decided.
Yeah. So the built-in memory is currently a black box. I'm pretty soon that will be opened up in a future. We install things through a skill. I'm pretty sure there's going to be a service that under the hood saves this for you, allows this to be manageable as well. But it's kind of like one of those progression things that we just see coming in a lot of the tools, because they will use this to avoid their own mistakes, and kind of you have a whole feedback loop of learning where if you weren't putting in kind of what you needed, it wasn't learning, and it was just as bad. Maybe the model was better trained, but now with the better context, it just keeps going, improving the context, rewriting the memory, a little bit like humans do, unfortunately. So.
Yep, so let me do one more thing here in the background, and we will continue. Okay, so we got skills down, we got right retrieval down, we got the memory set up. Who thinks our agent is better now? Not a trick question. Not a trick question. Who thinks the agent is better now? Come on, I said not a trick question. Oh, thank you. All right. Patrick, you think it's better now?
Yeah.
It's definitely better now.
Probably.
And people agree?
Yeah, I think what you all did is, as much as you hit it, you did a vibe check, right? You said like, let's get to me a little bit.
Also, there is Patrick. We cannot say that it's bad, although we think it's
yeah,
right.
I'm a Belgian. I can't take choices. So. But it's hard to predict this up front, right? Like, as much as we want it to be and we believe it to be, like, it can still get things wrong. So, the word vibe check actually came from people looking at when a new model was introduced, whether it did, like, it was better, yes or no. And they didn't have a set of tests. So the only thing they could do is, we'll check, and that was a vibe check, right? And that later evolved into vibe coding as, I'm checking my code. But first, that kind of was a term as a vibe check in the ML engineering.
Okay,
so,
I need to do another experiment here. Who heard about evals? Okay, a lot of people. Who thinks that it's just a fancy name for tests that people like to show off? Okay, there's some hands. Who thinks that it's like a super complicated data science shit that you will never be able to grasp? Okay, another set of hands. Okay, good. It's actually neither, right? How does it work?
Yeah, so most of the evals is you have a certain state of your project, you give it a prompt, and then the whole agent does something to it. And then you want to check that. Now, how do you write the tests? You all know tests, kind of the unit test, end-to-end tests that you're doing. But in this case, it's not always that clear. So what people use is, one of the things I learned with AI is if something isn't working with AI, you just use more AI. So for the testing, actually they use AI with the concept LLM as a judge. So you have rules that say, this is how you produce your code, and there's rules that can say, here's how you look at the code where it's good. Now, hopefully, there's a little bit of overlap, but it's a different focus. Like, this is for review, this is for code generation.
You can use other models as well that will give some kind of neutrality
as well. So you kind of write the same narratives as you have in your head. This is what good code looks like. This is what good code looks like to me. So you describe that, and then you use kind of scenarios to kind of see whether that is working, yes or no.
Ideally, you will review those scenarios and say, yes, This is what you really need to evaluate. Maybe do, maybe don't. And then what happens?
Yeah, so they check it. Now you have two problems. You have how do you write a good prompt and a good rules, and how do you write a good evaluator prompt? So the problem just multiplied.
Yeah,
and then
what can
you
possibly go
iterate
wrong?
on one, and then kind of see if this got improved, and then you improve this and see if your test pass again. So there is like two work to it. So it's like the thing you have to think about is like, if you were, like a lot of the unit tests kind of mirror this, but in this case, you also kind of have to mirror whether that is actually a good review, yes or not. So there's now double the work. Like we save time, but you got to put some work in there.
And here's an example of eval criterion, right? That was obviously generated by LLM. It goes into, okay, this is the problem description, this is the output specification, and this is how we want to judge it, right? So what should happen, what we expect to see in the results, and what is the weight, the max score that certain rubric can score.
Yeah, so the scores are based on what the LLM gives you, based on your criteria and kind of that. Like, is it a 10, is it a 9? But at least it gives you some indication how far off you are. Again, this is never perfect. It's not like an exact test, like a unit test, but it does give you a way of better writing your prompts and getting feedback on how to do that like better.
Right, so, and those evals are, can evaluate our context artifact, our piece of context as a whole. In the end of the day, LLM checks behavior, and the comprehensive behavior is skills, rules, and docs working together to produce better results. So we run evaluations on those pieces of content together and see the results. So who thinks that our behavior with our PG notification library is now better when we packed it with rules, skills, and docs than it was if it just had to find information about it out in the wild? Who thinks that it's better now? Okay, yeah, you see, not trick question. Who thinks it's better by what? 30%. It's like 1/3 better. Who thinks it's better by like 50%? It's like twice as better. Okay, who thinks it's like 3 times better? You people of little faith. That's all I can say. Okay, let's see. This is the summary of all scenarios. Baseline without context is 35%. It's terrible because this is library that I vibe coded yesterday. Basically, the agent has no idea what I'm talking about when I refer to PG. It probably thinks pigeons. But with context, skills, docs, and rules, 98%, it's right there in the blue, so 98% of correctness when we use it. Right? Impressive? I think it is.
Yeah.
Okay, so here we go.
Yeah, so the concept is it even can not only grade your thing, it can also create the scenarios out of your code. Right? And then you kind of say, oh, this is a good scenario, and then you kind of like do the eval on of that. So there's a lot of help of AI to kind of like deal with this whole flow to make it less kind of tedious of typing and testing and doing that as well. I guess it's also important that you review every time your evals, whether they make sense to you. The LLM can get it wrong, much as it can get like the coding wrong. You're the domain expert. That's the work that you need to do. You know, while you're not coding, this is the work that you can put the effort in to get better results.
All right, so here you go. 50 minutes ago, you watched the agent fail, and now you know exactly why. So, Patrick, what, 20 years ago, you looked at dev and ops and said, this is the same problem, we need to solve it together. Today, you look at AI agents and developers and do the same.
Yeah, and if you want to hear more about that, I have a session later in the day, so pick me on that.
Absolutely. Okay, so for antipatterns for fixes, Stuffed prompt, we do skills. Wrong tool, we use the right channel. Goldfish agent, you don't trust built-in memory or compaction, write it down yourself. And context engineering is an architecture problem. Context artifacts are actually building blocks and not stupid empty files. So treat them accordingly. This is Patrick Dubois.
And this is Baruch.
Thank you very much. The same QR code for show notes that has the slides will have the video, the cheat sheet, the demos, everything is there.
The whole shebang.
The whole shebang. We have 6 seconds for questions. No, we don't.
Thank you very much. We don't have time for questions, but
We're
you're
around.
going to stay here for a while. And we come back with the next session about evals.